Hello and welcome to Bodyweight Calisthenics Home, the YouTube channel dedicated to my personal bodyweight calisthenics journey. And this is the very start of my journey. And if you want to know how it's working out, then please do subscribe and hit the notifications bell. And in fact, it might be some weeks or months down the line since I've made this video, so there might be some updates on my channel. So head over to my channel if you want to know how I'm getting on. So this is day one. I'd love you to join me on this journey. Now, before I've got started, I've gone away and done some research because I didn't want to enter into this process without a little bit of background knowledge. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 10 basic rules for beginners who want to try a bodyweight calisthenics workout. This, by the way, and the pull-up bar above me, and indeed this bedding box that I'm sitting on, is my homemade, home-based calisthenics bodyweight gym, which again I put together having done some research. And if you want a guided tour of my bodyweight gym, then head over to my YouTube channel because I've done a video on it, and the thumbnail looks a little bit like this. You'll see it at the corner of the screen. And whilst I'm talking about this corner of the screen, you will also see some little videos running there, which are how I look right now as I get started, because I want to draw a line in the sand and have on record exactly what I look like right now before I actually do any exercise. So you'll see some pretty flabby images of my body as it is, as I'm speaking to you right now, appearing here to my left, your right of screen. You'll also see in some of those videos a tape measure, because one of these principles is that which can be measured can be managed. And I've already started off my journey by taking lots of different measurements, and you'll see those in another video on my channel, my starting measurements, and that might be of interest to you if you're about to start, because those are the key measurements which I want to look at. Anyway, have a look at my channel and see those videos there. Without further ado, let me get into my 10 simple rules for beginners bodyweight calisthenics. And number one is indeed that which can be measured can be managed. I've already told you. I've taken several measurements that I want to change. My chest, my middle, my belly, around my glutes, my thighs, my biceps, and also my shoulder measurements. So those are the basic things that I want to change by doing this calisthenics workout. I've also bought some body weight scales which weigh me, but they also analyze my body composition. So those are also included in my measurements, and those are my starting measurements, and they will also be the measurements that I review as I go forward. So they will give me an indication of my progress, and they will also provide motivation. So rule number one, take some measurements, because that which can be measured can be managed. And rule number two on my list, and incidentally, I've typed all these up in the description box below this video. Feel free to print them out. And as I say, if you're an expert, feel free to read them and add to them if you wish. But my rule number two is all about having a calorie surplus. Now, I've spent my life watching my weight and managing my calories at or around those which I need to survive. But when you're doing a bulking up program, a bodybuilding program, it's important to realize that you cannot do it on a calorie deficit. Indeed, you need a calorie surplus. So that's body weight rule number two, is you've got to run on a calorie surplus. Now, rule number three is also around diet, because whilst I've already said that you have to run a calorie surplus, it is important that the components of your diet are correct to build muscle. So rule number three is all around protein. Now, I have done some research and I've discovered that you've got to get a certain amount of protein into your diet per pound of body weight. Now, a pound is approximately 2.2 pounds in a kilogram, but I work on pounds, and I've worked out that I need 1 gram of protein per day for every pound of body weight. That means I have to get 170 grams of protein into my body every day, which is actually quite a challenge. And I've done a video on how to get your protein, and you can find that on my channel because it's quite innovative. You've got to find ways of doing it that also you find appetizing. Anyway, getting back to protein, you've got to have 1 gram of protein per day in your diet for a pound of body weight. So weigh yourself in pounds, and that's how many grams of protein you need to take on board every single day to build muscle. Rule number four is about rest. Now, when you start off on an exercise routine, it's tempting to go at it hell for leather and want to do it every single day. But what I've learned, and in a very strong message, is that you've got to have rest, because your muscles and your strength build on the rest days. They don't actually build when you're doing the exercises. What happens is when you do the exercises, you damage the muscles, you tear them, you create thousands of micro tears in the muscles, and it's on the rest day, given that you've had enough protein, that your body rebuilds and repairs and gets stronger. So it's really essential that you have those rest days. Another element of rest is getting good sleep, and I've done a video on how to enhance your sleep life. Again, you'll find that on my channel. So rule number four is all around rest. Moving on to five, rule number five is about technique and form. And it's really important that you study the correct technique and form before you do your exercise. And also the other thing that I learned was if you're doing it too hard or too heavy, that you lose technique and form. It's self-defeating. You've got to get your technique and form correct first, and then increase the weight or the resistance, because the first building block is getting the form and technique correct. So rule number five, technique and form. And in the fullness of time, I will put some videos up on the correct technique and form for all the exercises I'm going to include in my workouts, and it will include things like dips, push-ups, pull-ups, squats, and lots of other different varieties. So look out for that video, hit the subscribe and notifications bell. Rule number six is again part of technique and form, but it's an important enough thing to separate out into its own little rule, and that is the fact that the eccentric or eccentric motion in your exercise is as or even more important as the concentric part of the motion. What does that mean? The concentric is when you're actually pulling or pushing with a press up, but the eccentric is the opposite, when you're letting go. So if I pull up on my chin up bar, it's important to let go gradually and slowly and under control, because that part of the motion is just as important as the pulling up. So that's an important factor to remember. So rule number six, eccentric, eccentric and concentric. Focus on them both. And whilst we're on the subject of eccentric and concentric, another little part to that rule, a little bonus rule if you like, is that you don't rest between repetitions. You keep going. You do rest between sets, so you might do 3 sets of 12 repetitions, but between repetitions you don't ever stop and have a rest, because it's about time under tension. And so if you keep going in a slow, consistent, continuous, controlled motion throughout your repetitions, you have continuous time under tension, and it's that time under tension which helps the muscles to break down, and then they will repair on the rest day which follows. Rule number 7 links into that eccentric and concentric motion I've just been speaking about, and that is this principle of progressive overload, or hypertrophy or hypertrophy. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but that's a medical term. But progressive overload is where you continuously build on the resistance over time. But that's about loading your muscles to failure with progressive overload, so that when the muscles fail, in other words, they tear and they rip, it's the repairing of that damage that builds the strength and actually the volume and the size of your muscles. So rule number 7 on my list of 10 principles or beginner's rules is hypertrophy or progressive overload. So it might be that I start off in my workout with incline press-ups, because I'm not just strong enough yet to do horizontal ones. Then I might go and do them against this bedding box on a slightly more horizontal basis. Then eventually I'll be working up to fully horizontal press-ups. By the time I can do 3 sets of 12 repetitions on full horizontal press-ups, I won't be a beginner anymore, and then I'll look at ways of making them even more difficult so that I can continue with that progressive overload, which will then result in further and further hypertrophy, which is the muscle damage, which makes the bulk and the strength. Hope that makes sense. If you've got a better way of putting it, please do put it in the comments box below, but I hope that does make sense. Now, my rule number 9 is very personal to me. Effectively, I'm a 6 foot, 12 stone weakling. I can't do all the bodyweight workout exercises that I've seen on YouTube yet. I'm just not strong enough. So what I've got to do is I've got to find a routine that works for me. And so my initial routine will be quite a low strength, full body workout. And I will even have to use these rubber support bands. You can see one here and there's some above my head here, because I'm just not strong enough to do enough reps and enough sets with the correct form and technique. That's why I've got these. But the point being, I will start off with a full body workout, and I will get stronger, and I will progress and improve and get bigger and stronger. And then eventually, at some point in time in the future, when I've dispensed with these bands, these support bands, and I can do the full range of sets and repetitions without support, I will then move on to dividing my work up into possibly chest and then back and then legs. But my starting point will be an all-round holistic full body workout. And I'll tell you now, the start off workout will not be very difficult to most people out there watching this, because I've never really done any exercise in my life. It's day one for me. So I'm a beginner, and this is where I start. And that now brings me to number 10. My 10th rule in my 10 simple rules for beginners for bodyweight calisthenics. And my 10th rule is about motivation. It's all about knowing your whys. There are cold, dark, miserable, wet, damp days ahead, and I've got to come out of the lovely warm house into this cold garage and do my workout on my own. So what am I going to find as a way of motivating me? And that is all about understanding my whys. Why am I doing it? So my 10th rule is, what are your whys? Know why you are doing it. And I've actually done an exercise where I've sat down and written down on a piece of paper all the things which I can find to motivate me. And I've got that in the house and I can refer to it. And it's in a video, so I can watch my own video and motivate myself. But unless you've got a very clear vision of your whys and your motivations, it might be difficult to continue with this process. So again, rule number 10, what are your whys? Sit down with a piece of paper, work them out, write them down, refer back to them, amend them at some point in the future if you need to. I mean, mine, just to give you a brief overview, include things like the fact that I've reached the menopause and I've noticed I'm getting weaker and I'm slowing down on my energy levels and my sex drive have reduced. And this is a way of I'm trying to sort of slow down the aging process. And there's lots of little things like that for me personally. Yours will be personal to you. So there we go. My 10 easy rules for beginners for bodyweight calisthenic exercises. Don't forget, have a look at my channel, subscribe, hit the notifications bell. You'll find lots of content on there, like a guided tour of the gym, my workout, my motivations, things about diet and protein. And I'll see you soon.